Hey everybody, how you doing? Hopefully the weekend's treating you well. The video this weekend, I want to spend a couple minutes going through some index charts, giving some general thoughts on the market. Then I wanted to spend a little bit more time reviewing a bunch of opportunities I'm looking at for next week. So hopefully you find it helpful. We'll get started. Here's the SPY, S&P 500 ETF. Last week we came back into this big 280 level that was resistance back here in March. Again in June. Later in the summer, it turned into support. Then in October's, we started going back down. We came back to retest it. Price rejected that level. And again, last week, we came back into it and price rejected that level. So in the short term here, I think that 280 in the SPY is a key level to watch. If we start pulling back a little bit and maybe form a shorter term higher low and start moving up from there, you'll start hearing a lot of talk about maybe a inverse head and shoulders pattern here in this and a lot of the indexes, and that's definitely a possibility. Too early to call, not a certainty at this point, but that's a possibility. So if that would happen, that would obviously be constructive for the bullish case. So the larger cap names looking pretty good, but the mid caps here's the MDY mid cap ETF. We have this 355 level that was resistance back here in the late winter, turned in support then in the summer. And we're still a decent amount below that level. 200 days starting to turn down. Same with IWM. Small caps look pretty bad in my opinion. We have this 160 level that was resistance here and here. Sliced right through it, made a little kind of a feeble attempt to retake it down more. So a lot of work to do here in the small caps. If we can get back above that 160 level, that would be a good move in the right direction for the bulls. But right now, small caps look pretty weak. I look at the monthly chart. I looked at this last week. We have this monthly MACD here on the bottom, and this has been an important signal in the past. You could see we've had a couple times where it's been a bearish cross, like 2015. It didn't necessarily signal a big, market crash or anything, but we did have a period of about 18 months where it took to get back to a new high. And again, here, even in 2011, this minor cross, it took a number of months to establish a new high. So at the best case scenario, when this has happened, in the past 20 years or so, it's meant a pause in the trend of the market. And then worst case, obviously you have 2000 here and 2007 and 8 where it signaled some pretty major tops. So something to kind of just be aware of. Again, this could reverse itself pretty quickly and things could go back to being fine. But with the small caps and mid caps looking so weak, I'm kind of taking a very neutral approach right now. But there are some nice looking charts that I'm looking at for next week. So let's go through some of those. So we'll start off here, and I will say these first few that I'm going to cover, I actually own positions in these: Zen, ZTS, USM, CRNT, and Duncan. I bought these two last week, and I've owned some of these for a little bit more, but I'm including them in this video because I think they're setting up quite nicely now. And if you don't have a position, if they start looking good and shaping up well next week, these look like nice risk reward opportunities here. So here's Zen. This has this level here, just above 52, acted as support here, and it's kind of consolidating right there. So if it starts turning up, above this 53, 50, $54 level, I think this looks like a nice long opportunity with the stop just below that. ZTS, this is one I bought last week. I like the look of this. You can see it get this former resistance area turn support there in October, and then it's breaking out here above this, we'll call it at about 93, 94 level. Kind of started to there, pull back a little bit. Now it looks like it's establishing itself above that 94 level. So this is one that I bought with a stop slightly below that yellow there, and it's just sitting right there. So it looks like a nice buy opportunity for next week if you're interested in that one. USM, this one looks pretty good, had a really strong move off of the earnings there. I do own a small position in this one, but it has this nice little consolidation flag here. So if it starts popping up out of this, I'd consider adding to this next week with a stop maybe just under this consolidation level around $51, $52. But a lot of demand for those shares, had that big up move, and now it's kind of consolidating nicely. So if it starts moving up out of the consolidation, USM looks like a nice opportunity in my view. CRNT, this just had a beautiful breakout. This is a weekly chart here. We'll call it about 420, 425 was resistance here back in early 2007, resistance. And then we broke above it there last week on really big volume. So really like a nice looking cup and handle pattern there. And then a very similar looking pattern here on the daily chart going back from late summer. So Above that, 425 area, I think CRNT looks like a really nice long opportunity. Duncan, this one held up well in October. It's just kind of been consolidating nicely in this uptrend here, and then we broke out of the downtrend line from September last week, had a couple closes above it, and we're above this horizontal level I'm watching around $73. That was the highs back there in July and August, so I think Duncan looks pretty nice. I bought it last Friday, and it still looks like it's setting up pretty nicely going into next week. INT, a lot of energy names looking pretty weak, but I like how this one's setting up, so I'm just kind of keeping an eye on it. I went over this one last week as well, but this $29 level was resistance all these times, broke above it, now we're retesting it. So if we start pulling away from this 29, maybe if we get up to around 30 or so, this one might attract my attention for a buy. I like the looks of the chart there, and I really like the looks of this one too. This is PUMP. Another energy name, we broke out of this downtrend line that's been in place all year, and then I always look for a horizontal level to trade off of. So for this one here, it's about 1840. That was the highs there in October. Friday, we're started off down big, and then we actually closed up above that. So I'm looking for pump potentially as a buy for next week. Nice looking chart there. Here's an aerospace and defense name, AJRD. Here's the weekly chart. So that has this level here around 36.50 or so as resistance. Got slightly above it there, acted as resistance. And now I'll pull up the daily. We're consolidating right there, just above that $37 level. So if we consolidate a little bit or start pulling away from this area here, I think this one looks like a nice potential long here with the stop slightly below 37 or so, depending on your how much you want to risk. I noticed a lot of REITs and a lot of utilities charts looking really good in my opinion. So I'll just go through a couple of them here. Here's TRNO. This one, I can pull up the weekly chart as well. It might be a little easier to see. It has this big, base here around $38, $39. So if this one can pull up above, if it can get above its Thursday high, maybe around 39.50 or 40, this looks like a nice add, nice breakout play there. REXR, similar play. I might like this one even a little bit better because it's sitting right there, right above this 32.75. You could see it was a resistance here, and now it's just sitting right there. So this one looks like a nice potential long here above that level with the stop slightly under the yellow box for me. So those are two I'm looking at. LARD, another REIT, kind of similar, just kind of basing, consolidating, starting to move above it. So if that continues next week, I think some of these REITs look like nice potential long opportunities. A couple of utilities, really similar looking charts. Here's EXC. Again, just a nice little base developing here. If it's over 45, looks pretty good from the long side in my view. NEE, same thing. Has this 175, 176. It's just kind of consolidating right there, holding up really well the last few weeks. So if it can hold above that level, it looks like a nice long opportunity, and you can put your stop slightly below that in case it starts heading back down. GTN, this is one I actually entered it a couple weeks ago and got stopped out a little quick, but now it's setting back up. So this is the weekly chart here. You can see this $17.80, $18 level this is going back to 2015 now. It's pretty strong resistance there and there. Took a few years, got back, price was rejected, big down move, then consolidated right at that level. And then last week finally broke out and got the weekly close above it. So GTN looks really nice. I might look at the daily chart. I might look for it to consolidate a little bit or maybe pull back, to 1875, 19, and then start moving off that area. But this is definitely on my watch list for a buy for next week. And like I said, I did enter this, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and I got stopped out pretty quick. And it's hard to do sometimes to re-enter trades that you get stopped out on, but it really shouldn't matter. I mean, whatever the ticker symbol is, it doesn't really matter if you get stopped out of it and it sets up again. You can try it again. It doesn't matter. The past is the past, so you shouldn't hesitate. And I know it's easier said than done, trust me, but you shouldn't hesitate just because you got stopped out of something. If it sets up again, you should take each opportunity as it is. So that's GTN, one I'm watching. CBOE looks nice. This has this level here around $108, $109. You could see a lot of action there, acted as support. Turned resistance here, in May, September, resistance. Now it's kind of consolidating right above it. So if it starts pulling up, 110 or so, I think CBOE looks like a nice potential long. Now for the other side, if things start going down next week, there's some opportunities. Netflix, this has this area here around 315 or so that was resistance turned support. You can see its support there in August. Again, in early October, sliced below it, came back to retest that area, and then Friday had that big down move. So I think this area here in Netflix, 320 or so, is acting as pretty strong resistance. So if you wanted to take a short in Netflix against that area, I could see that being a nice risk reward opportunity there. Semiconductors continue to look pretty bad. Here's SOXS. This is the 3X short semiconductor. This chart's looking pretty good here, around 1175. It was resistance here in the summer. Again, early summer, August, broke above it, acted as support, had that nice big up move, and then again turned into support. And Friday put in a nice day. So this is one that I like on the long side. Again, this is the short semiconductor ETF. And if the semiconductors continue to act weak, this is a good way to potentially profit from that move. RWM, I did enter this last week as well. As I mentioned, small caps don't look very good to me. But this has this level here around $40 that was support, broke through it, acted as support again around 40, had that nice up move, and then came back again. So it's acting as support again. This is another one of those. Maybe it's forming a head and shoulders pattern here, which would be the inverse of the index, forming that inverse head and shoulders we talked about. But that's jumping the gun at this point. It's definitely a possibility. But right now, what I see in this short Russell 2000 ETF is a potential longer term trend reversal play. And obviously it could be wrong here. So if it gets under $40, I'd get out of this trade. But for now, I like the setup here and the risk reward of this RWM. So those are a few things I'm watching for next week. Again, hopefully you found it helpful. If you're interested and want to check out ttptrading.com, it's myself and CJ Agresta. Live trade alerts, we nightly recap trade recaps, nightly updates, morning updates from CJ, weekend videos for me. But we're running a free trial right now, so if you want to check it out, you go ahead. And if not, that's just fine. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and have a good weekend. Thanks.